Mi sono sbagliata.
I switch now to English as this discussion will be in this language. I would like to introduce to you our Senior Business Development Manager here at the Center for Sustainable Energy at FPK, Marco Tomasi. Marco is an engineer with an MBA and supports the role of hydrogen through the involvement of companies, organizations, and institutions. Marco. I would like to ask to the speakers to join us on the stage, Nina Meglic and Nikolaus Fleischhacker. We have met them this morning, and Massimo Bertoldi from SolydEra. Marco?
Grazie. No, c'ho qua. Good afternoon to everyone. We are near to the end of this event, and first of all, I want to say you thank you because I know that the day is really long and heavy. In a market ready for competition, companies could think in terms of doing business, and so we could talk only of funding and investments from a technical point of view. Talking about instruments to finance the business and maximize the ROI. But we are faced with an hydrogen market that is still to be created. So we want to discuss with three experts about the three dimensions, three elements that could contribute to creating the right condition to competition and to do business and for the companies. And so we have here Nina Meglic, you know, that is head of the project management of the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Styria in Slovenia and the head of an innovation cluster. And we will discuss with her about the economic and technical instruments that could help enable the creation of an hydrogen market. Then we have Nikolaus Fleischhacker, co-founder of Green Energy Center in Innsbruck and CEO of FEN Research. And with Nikolaus, we will discuss about initiatives that could foster the development of hydrogen market. And at the end, we have Massimo Bertoldi of SolydEra SpA. That is a pioneeristic, we could say, company that already is competing in the hydrogen market. And so we will discuss about technology, opportunities and difficulties to be overcome to do business in a market with a strong and rapid growth perspective. And so I like to start with Nina Meglic. And I'm quite sensitive about a thing that I read on LinkedIn. I don't know if it's right that you are from the start of this year, you are a member of the Women Climate Leaders Network. Okay, I want to, we are talking about business and technology, but I'm quite sensitive in this because in most developing countries, women are responsible for meeting the food needs of their families. And so this, of course, negatively impacts on their health, ability to receive an education, and even to pursue their ambitions. And it's easy to understand how the climate change affects everyone, but women are more exposed to its consequences than men. And so I want to say thank you to Nina for this, because it's really great. Thank you. Yes. And so, Nina, the question for you is, what are the instruments that you see relevant and are maybe missing to develop the hydrogen sector? Are these more on a private or public nature?
Thank you very much also for this nice surprise. It's true, yes. The European Investment Bank actually initiated a Women Climate Leaders Network. And then the governments proposed candidates for this network, and that's how I was involved in it. It takes now, it started in February, and we can provide suggestions to the European Investment Bank and indirectly also to the European Commission on how to advance, let's say, the transition to more climate neutral economies in the European Union. So any suggestions are welcomed, but you also have your own representatives from Italy in the network. Regarding the question, actually, it will be a continuation of what I already, let's say, said in the previous panel. So if you remember, I was talking about public-private partnerships, interregional collaboration, and this is somehow the red line of all the panels today, I would say, and especially of these emerging sectors such as hydrogen, low carbon technologies, circular economy transition. What I didn't say before and what it somehow encompasses or links together all these measures that need to be taken is that I think we would more or less all agree here in the room that it is crucial for the European Union to maintain a realistic hydrogen narrative that doesn't divert investment. So at this point, I think we all feel that these targets that we have currently set till 2030, 2050 should be somehow in the near future re-examined. Also the costs related to the targets and especially the import needs for the European industry. Why? To maintain somehow the international credibility, also comparing to other continents and looking at the geopolitical situation. So this would be maybe more on a, let's say, public side measure that is also linked to the hydrogen diplomacy, let's say. Knowing also the fact that the member states can decide on their own energy mix, and that of course has a lot to do with what legislation, what steps are taken at the national level. As long as we don't have a very strong supranational entity or like a political system as in the United States, for example. So despite all this, we would need a very strong strategic position at the level of the EU, which, I don't know, at least from the experiences in the last years, it will be very difficult to reach among member states. However, we can all agree that the European Union is somehow leading this green transition in the global context. So when it comes to, let's say, advancing the hydrogen sector and especially the research and innovation, we should definitely promote more concretely among all member states that when we do the investments, there also needs to be this strong end-of-life perspective, recycling, eco-design. And if we would be very, let's say, positive, of course, a supranational budget for hydrogen would be key. Related hydrogen industrial policy. Because we need to mitigate all these distortions that are happening because of the different systems of national state aids. So this, of course, then somehow favors richest member states. And of course, it's not a surprise that I am talking about that coming from Slovenia, which is a very small country with a small budget. So we often see then that this becomes also a subsidy race between different member states. Somehow all these, let's say, measures, public-private measures, would then allow us to avoid fragmentation that we can see already going on, improve coordination and collaboration, which is key, as we know, and also limit the spending of the money in an inefficient way. Thank you.
And so now with Nikolaus, I want to talk about the market, because the development of the market requires the development of pilot initiatives, of first case of application of the supply chain. In fact, hydrogen, we know that is a technology, but the market is not still ready. It's not existing. What initiative in the Green Energy Center in Innsbruck are you promoting to encourage the development of the supply chain? And how do you see hydrogen valleys placed in this context?
Thank you. So, actually, that is a real big issue. At the Green Energy Center, we work with a threefold systemic approach. So, of course, there's the demand and there's the resource production on the other hand, and both are connected via a demand coverage system. And when we started in 2014, the first idea was to think about finding something where we can start with the demand. And on the demand side back then, the only thing available you could more or less, maybe less buy, was cars. That's why we started with hydrogen cars. Not because they're important for what they are meant to, but because they're important to start some small demand side. And from there, then also demand was given to have the first hydrogen refueling stations, and then implement also first electrolyzer sites, especially the one we have there. When this 3 megawatt electrolyzer, so we are now on the production resource side, went into operation, we actually now have more than enough hydrogen in the region, so it's even exported to Bavaria and so on, and most of the hydrogen applications in the area are fueled by this. So one can see the demand side is very small still. So again, in mobility, or if we think about mobility, we started to look at the more interesting mobility applications, heavy duty, and we initialized projects for a hydrogen truck called High Truck, High Bus, High Snow Groomer for the pist preparation, and also the hydrogen train project. Most of them luckily were successful. So High Train, I told you, was not, but the buses are now, first buses are in operation. Also the trucks are now, first prototypes were available 2 years ago. Now we are going into a more steady project and or product, so to say. So now first mobility applications become available that can use now this hydrogen produced. And one really sees that this process of production and demand, it really builds up, but it's very painful and slowly, because these technologies are also so expensive. So everyone in the chain is doing its best, but in the end, if we compare to the technologies that are already established, mainly mobility diesel, it's a huge issue, and also all the funding demands or the funding programs are not sufficient to cover that. So we are still in the one-and-one projects where we try to go forward. And obviously the goal is to get to bigger scales, and there at the moment we are really in a valley of death, I even would say, to really get to the masses. There we miss now really. We are missing the idea how to get there. This is really a big issue, actually.
Thank you. And now to Massimo of SolydEra. SolydEra, we know that it's a company that offers technology that on the one hand, still requires research and development. On the other, it requires measures open to the new markets. What is the strategy developed by your company, by SolydEra, to move between these two dimensions?
Yeah. Thank you, Marco. And first of all, thank you very much, FBK and the organizer, for the invitation and the chance to present our point of view on this very important matter. I appreciate it. I would like to start to say that hydrogen is in our DNA, so our core business from the very beginning. We started 18 years ago to develop power generator based on fuel cell running with hydrogen and natural gas. And then along our history also we increased the portfolio of the product towards electrolyzer. So basically what we do, we are a core technology provider providing product that convert electron into hydrogen or vice versa, hydrogen back into electricity. And so in this sense, for us, it's super important to do R&D, and we continue to invest a significant amount of resources in R&D. Typically, our strategy is to do this in an open approach. We are in several European projects in cooperation with several partners, including FBK. FBK is one of our strategic partners, which has a very strong competence basis and very also fruitful cooperation. So we need to invest in R&D, but I would say that at the moment, this is not the main point. What we see is more important to facilitate the market introduction. And in this sense, our strategy is to establish cooperation and strategic partnership with industrial players that are already into the market and to work with them to accelerate the time to market. Just to give you an example, last year we signed a cooperation agreement with KBR in the space of green ammonia, so hard-to-abate sector, hydrogen for ammonia, for fertilizer, for example. And in this way, we could really cooperate with a big player who has 50% onto the market. And now we are looking to establish similar cooperation in other sector, in other market segment. But I think the question is, what is missing? So why we are not yet commercially successful? And as I said, Nikolaus said, the price is too high at the beginning. Of course, you need to reach a given volume on the market to reach a competitive price. But today, I would like to stress another point. I see hesitation from the early adopter. No one wants to be the first mover. And there is a kind of hesitation. A lot of investment decisions are postponed, and particularly for a new technology like solid oxide, the people hesitate or wait or postpone the decision. So maybe they go to an alkaline from China. They take also a technical risk there, but they don't dare to basically invest on the new technology, even if it's European-based. So I think here there should be a supportive scheme in place, not only about funding, but also on bankability and reduce the risk for the early adopter. So I would like to see basically support not to us, but to our customer, ideally in Europe. Of course, I was born in Trentino, so I would love to see one of the first installations here in the region, in the mountain, but or at least together with the others one. But the other ones, we are talking about South America, North Africa. So if you can get also locally a supportive scheme, which is funding, but also regulatory framework, stable and reliable, this could maybe convince or help the early adopter to take the decision for the investment. Yeah, no problem.
Okay, and so to give a short wrap-up about your contribution, I think that has been really interesting to see that what you said are quite compliant with the strategy of Draghi, you know, that as wrote in September, because in the strategy, hydrogen has a bigger role in the decarbonization. In particular, we, in the report, is talked about effective rules, because rules to compete are fundamental. Because especially in Italy, if you see the report from the for example, Maestre del Camera di Commercio and so on, you see that the problem for the company, the big company, to invest in Italy is not about the money, it's not to fund money investment, but it's about the rules. And so rules in a market are fundamental. Even, and I appreciate your comment about to reduce the risk for early adopter, because it's really nice that there are companies like yours that are first mover, that are pioneeristic, and this company, because for their effort, because they are really brave and so pioneeristic, we have, of course, to help with rules and to foster this effort. And from another point of view, that is even in the report of Draghi, we talked about the hydrogen valley, and even in the report, the hydrogen valley are identified like a strategic initiative to scale up, because we can, of course, to have a bigger production of hydrogen, and so probably we will receive to low down the cost of hydrogen. So thank you, because I think that the discussion has shown that the different actors of the hydrogen sector own a deep awareness about what we need to move the market. And so let's go. Thank you.
Okay.
Do you have, sorry, only a second. Do you have any question, some curiosity, doubt? One.
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah. My question may be for all of you. You decide who speaks. I was wondering, like, hydrogen right now is, let's say, an emerging field, an emerging market, whatever we want to call it. And I was wondering if you can put it into perspective against other technologies that have been in an emerging solution, like batteries in the 90s. I don't know, Sony was, I think Sony was the first that produced mass market batteries. And in this perspective, would you say that hydrogen is having more problems than other solutions that now are like the standard? Would you say that, I don't know, we always say that hydrogen is slow, is getting slowly to the market, but I think that it's normal for every emerging solution. So I wanted some perspective on other examples. And you say, okay, it's just normal, or is it maybe an outlier or something else?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Green Energy Center, for example, we always said, say that for 10 years now, for battery electric mobility is 5 years in the future and hydrogen 10 to 15 years. And today we can still say the same number, so it was wrong on both of it. But the main issue is just that in our perceiving, the hydrogen is just, the readiness level is lower than for the battery electric or the direct electrification. And if you then, of course, compare both and say, okay, they are the same, then this is an issue. But in general, I agree with your assumption. We are still in the learning curve, and with hydrogen, we are still in the beginning. We want to be further, but we are not. And in this beginning, this just takes quite a long time. But one can see that it's getting more and more and more. From my point of, or from where I stand, I sometimes think, okay, we are standing still, But if I tell others what we did the last 10 years, then one sees there is progress. And we are in this exponential curve, but at the very beginning still.
Yeah, so from my side, but first of all, I don't see really a competition between, for example, battery and hydrogen. I mean, there is different positioning on the market, depends on the size of the storage. So if you look at the PV, also PV, it took 20, 25 years to get really commercial. So it will take time, and hydrogen will come later. I believe hydrogen also suffer about some need for infrastructure. I think we discussed before this morning. So there is an additional barrier on safety infrastructure. But to be very honest, I know that, for example, in New York, the firework department was delaying 2-3 years the introduction of the power wall for fire, for the risk of fire with the batteries. So in some cases, battery also can be an issue. So I think everyone has his own barrier. At the moment, hydrogen is a little bit behind, but there is no intrinsic limitation that you can bring hydrogen at the scale that we are talking about.
Thank you. I have the last question for Massimo. Please.
Yeah, I would put maybe this into perspective, also looking at how other sectors developed. For example, internal combustion motors, it took 80 years to come to the state of art of the technology that we have now. So I believe that if we compare how fast we want to come to the, let's say, the use and development of hydrogen technologies, we are even faster than we were in the past. But of course, also times have changed. This is one. However, we could see, for example, in the last, 20 years, that hydrogen already had its momentos, which is quite specific for this sector, let's say. And then it stopped, and we went, for example, to focus more on electrification. Like as an anecdote, I wrote one of my first projects like 12 years ago on hydrogen, and at that time it was rejected because the governments that were involved in that project said we are not interested in this topic. But then 5 years later, the same project, the same content was approved, and we are now already doing a follow-up. So yeah, I believe this is a little bit specific for this technology, but this is probably because of all these questions that are still quite high on the agenda, like security that was discussed before, and of course the social acceptance of it.
Thank you. I have the last question for Massimo. I am quite worried, but I'm curious about industrial things, because the amount of hydrogen, green hydrogen, that the European Commission set for the 2030 is really huge. And we will need, of course, thousands of electrolyzers, okay? And so do you see that our movement in the sector of the manufacturing? Because I'm quite worried that we are setting up the polite and right rules for the environment, and then we will do the business to others.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, if you look what happened with the PV industry, everything went to China, and I think European Union decided, or at least decided that we don't want to repeat the mistake. So that's why there are so many funding available, like an IPCI project, to build up capacity. But in reality, what we understood at the moment, there is an overcapacity. So even if the target in terms of capacity by 2030 is not reached, but there are some gigafactory building up, and I think it's 10 million tons per year, if I don't mistake, plus 10 million imported. So we can get there, but to get there is not only a matter of funding. You need off-taker. I go back to my previous point. If no one buys the hydrogen because it's too expensive, we will not reach the capacity. So we need to close the gap. But theoretically, it's possible to reach 10 million tons. Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Thank you.